Latte speaker, Kelly Hughes, hails from the great state of New Jersey. A graduate of Providence College and the Boston College School of Theology and Ministry, she can be found running BC Appa volunteers from her standing desk in McElroy. A well-known fan of Bruce Springsteen-fueled road trips, expertly paired charcuterie plates, and Stevie Wonder Wednesdays, Kelly is perhaps most well-known for her boundless warmth and inclusivity. On Sunday evenings, she can be found in Trinity Chapel on Newton campus, distributing a variety of cookies and citrus fruits after Mass. On Friday nights, she can be found singing Whitney Houston into a wooden spoon in her kitchen. She frequently congratulates friends on the world's best cup of coffee. During the Christmas season, she abides by the main food groups of candy, candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. And she is thrilled to be sharing her thoughts on What Are You Waiting For this evening. Without further ado, let us welcome Kelly Hughes.
Thank you, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. And thank you, C21 Campus Ministry and Megan Krakowiak, who just introduced me. That's my roommate. Thank you all for being here tonight. Wow, you are willing to do anything to procrastinate on your finals, to see all of you right now. If you want to get to know me, the first thing to know is my love of icebreakers. You know it, many of you already know this. The cringier, the more groan-worthy, the better. And so I'm going to ask you, find someone that you do not know around you, and 30 seconds, tell a story, a memory, a Christmas sweater experience, a recipe, a person, and hear it from them. Ready, set, go! See, that wasn't so bad, right? If tonight we're telling stories, it's better to tell it in a room full of friends rather than a room full of strangers. So glad you guys get to know each other, even if you already know each other quite well. Some more. So a story I would have told in my 30 seconds is the story of the ugly Christmas sweater, the one that I chose not to wear but do have with me, have worn many times. It is a word of an apology, a long overdue apology to my mother. I didn't realize how offensive it may have been to my mother, who after 30 years of esteemed elementary education, it might be to say, hey, Mom, can I go to your closet to get an ugly Christmas sweater? I didn't put two and two together till about this week. So, Mom, after 29 years, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the epic Christmas sweaters. Another thing to know about me, other than my Christmas sweater and my love of icebreakers, is the sense that I have of skepticism, very, very real skepticism around pop culture hype. The more hyped, the more I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want it. I don't want to be a part of it. So the question, hey, have you seen that video? Nope, and I probably won't. Hey, what about that thing on Netflix that everyone has watched? I may catch it 3 months after it's way past its prime. I once had a student last year talking to me about the recording artist SZA, but in my head, I was thinking like, paper. So anything that has pop culture relevance, I may not know it, and I probably choose not to know it because of my skepticism. And so when the sensation of Hamilton hit around the world, I saw that crazy train coming. I saw it go through the station, and I waved goodbye as it sped past. And yet it came to Boston this year, and I couldn't escape it. I did not see it, of course, but everyone else around me did, and made a point to talk about it, to sing it, to say, why have you not experienced Hamilton? What rock are you living under? And so at the loving challenge of my colleague, friend of For Boston fame, Carly Anderson of Campus Ministry, she said, Kelly, you need to experience this. You absolutely need to, start to finish, listen to the soundtrack. And so I had a train ride down to Philadelphia for two good friends getting married last month, and I said, all right, you know what, why not? I have the time, I got the quiet car, who can say no to Carly Anderson? I'll do it. And I listened to the soundtrack from start to finish. And of course, the weeping. I think Carly is still weeping after her Hamilton experience. And the weeping continues. But the thing that stands out to me is, you all know what I'm about to say, Leslie Odom Jr.'s Wait For It. That melodious voice, that catchy beat. and I was captivated. And as with things that captivate me, like a really good GIF, or a really good meme, or a punchline or a song, I repeat it again and again and again and again until it's beyond recognition. R.I.P. Viva La Vida, fall of 2007. You deserve so much more than what I gave you, and I can never, ever listen to you again, ever again. And so Wait For It played from Boston to Philadelphia and back to Boston again. And Leslie Odom Jr. inspired me to think of this question of Wait For It. Now, for the few people in this room who don't know Hamilton or the song, can someone give me a little snap here? Let's sing it a little bit. Dun, 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 dun. You got it, how to go. Life doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints, and it takes, and it takes, and it takes, and we keep loving anyway. We laugh, and we cry, and we break, and we make our mistakes, and if there's a reason I'm by her side, well, so many have tried. I'm willing to wait for it. Thank you so much. I'm willing to wait for it. Thank you all, wow. That is crowd participation. How'd I do, Hamiltonians, Hamilsauruses, all of you Hamilton people, is that okay? All right. So that question stayed with me, and it has stayed with me, because that song keeps playing again and again. But as we enter into this liturgical season of Advent, in the Christian tradition, this time of waiting, of preparation, of joyful anticipation of the coming of Christ at Christmas, of Emmanuel, God with us, this question of what am I waiting for? What am I willing to wait for? Who do I wait with? Who waits with me? And in this waiting, where do I make room for God? Do I even make room for God in that waiting as I keep listening to Leslie Odom again and again and again? And so I thought this could be a question for all of us tonight. What are you waiting for? It's a part of our human experience to wait. It is not something that we get to a point, A to B, and we no longer wait. It is something that is just inherent of what it means to be human. And so I'm thinking there's got to be law school applications, grad school applications, interviews, jobs. I know that because of the recommendations I've had to write in the last couple weeks. There is waiting for a friend to reach out and say, hey, are you okay? There's waiting for a roommate to finally do their dishes after how many weeks of just sitting there in the sink. There is waiting. That was a lot of groaning. Wow. Woo-hoo. We can talk about that after. Okay, great. There is the waiting of a grade. There is the waiting of how a family member is doing after a difficult situation. There is that waiting of that person to text you back, that special someone, and you see 3 little dots, and they disappear. What is that? What is that? So waiting as a part of being human, and it not being something we're particularly fond of, something we want to rush through, something we would rather speed up, slow down, get rid of, control. It's something we can't just wave our magic wand and say, hey, I'm done waiting. And I think a myth about adulthood, something that I totally believed as a college student, was that by the time I realized my career, realized my vocation, realized who I was, who God called me to be in the world, I wouldn't wait anymore. And then I got to adulthood and I was like, oh no, I'm still waiting. It's still a part of what it means to be human. And so I think of Leslie Odom Jr., of what I'm willing to wait for, and I think of all of the things that I say, you know what, I'm not, but why is that, and how can that be a space where I can invite God in? And so tonight I have no answer for waiting, and if that's what you wanted, thank you so much. Hope you got a t-shirt. Good luck with your finals. But tonight is a chance I want to share with you 3 stories I have where waiting was a moment of grace, a moment of opportunity, a moment to say, I'm not sure what's next, but I know that I am not alone, and I know that God is with me. And so I want to offer those stories tonight with hopes, too, that you'll look into your own lives, your own stories, and say, where am I waiting? What am I willing to wait for? And how can I invite God into that in this Advent season? So I start with my time in college, the same semester when I killed Viva La Vida, fall of 2007. And I started at Providence College. And I had worked really, really hard, like many of you, to get to college. And so much of high school had been that waiting game of getting to that school, getting to the right school, getting to a good school, getting through that time of how many meetings and practices and drama with friends. And so much in high school was just saying, wait till you get to college. And so I get to college and had this experience of freedom to say, okay, the waiting is over. I am at the school. Now what? And that freedom was really exhilarating. To think, who could I be here? I'm 6 hours away from my hometown, no sense of high school connections or a sense of who I was back in New Jersey, and now who do I hope to be? Who could I realize myself to be? And so I looked around and I surveyed and said, okay, what might happiness look like in these happiest years of my life? And I immediately saw the party scene. I saw that as a way to make friends. I saw it as a way to be known on campus. I saw that as a way to make a splash in the life of campus. And so I threw myself into that. And that was fine for 2 years for me. That was a part of what I thought college was supposed to be and who I was supposed to be in college. And that freedom shifted over 2 years into this feeling of emptiness, this sense of routine and predictability and boredom and this sense of like, what am I doing? Is this the point? To go to class, to go to the party, to go to brunch, to rehash the party, to then do it all over again. I couldn't see this cycle ending, and I couldn't see myself in it because I said, you take away the booze, you take away the brunch, you take away all of it together, would we be friends? Was this something that could last and endure? And by the end of my sophomore year, I was afraid it wasn't. And I very clearly remember making a phone call to my mother in the back stairwell of my residence hall because the hardest thing to find on a college campus is the place to make a teary phone call to your mother. And I sit in this back stairwell, and I remember saying to my mom, is this all there is? Is this what college was supposed to be? Is this what I had worked for to get to? And this was what I was supposed to wait for, to be here in this. And I felt that moment after I hung up of just waiting, hanging in the air. And knowing that I had to do something about it, knowing that I had to find some way to escape it, make a change, to rally some courage within me to say, stop, this can't continue because there's gotta be more. And so to escape the weekend routine, I actually went on a retreat, but was really guarded about the whole thing, didn't have a sense of retreat culture from this campus and said, you know what, I'll go, but it'll just get me out of that scene, it'll give me a break. But I looked around on the retreat and I saw something of that enduring joy. I saw something of that lasting friendship, the thing I was hungry for at brunch, and looked around and thought, this would happen without me even being here. And I looked to see what was the common denominator in that joy, and there was this sense of, who is God? And not in the like, do I kneel now? Do I bow now? Do I like sit and do this thing? It was a sense of a lived, personal experience of who God is. And in that, having that be the foundational understanding of who I am on this earth, who God calls me to be. And from that, my major, my friendships, how I spend my weekends, all of that coming from this lived relationship with God. And so I was like, well, I guess I should explore that. That seems like something that's working for them. Maybe I should explore it too. And a retreat led to a service immersion trip, which led to leadership, which led to it being my entire senior year in curricular activity. And it led to the November, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Existential crisis that maybe you've had, maybe not, maybe. And I had this moment of, I had a plan. You know, the waiting is something controlled by a really meticulous plan. So if I had a plan for my first year through, till I was 45, I had this great chance to control my waiting. And the plan went out the window in that existential crisis. The plan said, you know what, you're not gonna go on and get that PhD in psychology. You're not gonna be a clinician. You have to pay attention to this call to ministry that you've been spending all of your time outside of class thinking about, asking questions about, building community around. And you gotta look at that. And so that led to throwing out the plan and bringing in a year of service, a year of exploration. For me, it was really just a trial year of like, maybe I'm gonna hate this, but at least I'll give it a chance and then I can go back and apply for PhD programs. But I loved it. It was a year with Capuchin Youth and Family Ministries where we did youth ministry with high school students around service trips, retreats, youth groups. And there was a sense of rightness in that. There was the sense that this had actually been what I was waiting for. And so that led to the, oh crap, I probably should go back to school moment because I didn't pay attention to my theology classes in undergrad. And that led me to Boston College here. That led me to the School of Theology and Ministry with the hope and desire to serve in that way, to serve on a college campus in ministry in this transformative time to build communities of friendship, authenticity, a deep call to service, and to belong to one another in the way we live our lives and the way we build faith. And so that leads me to my next point of waiting, because it didn't just stop there once I figured out what was the career. It didn't just stop once I figured out what was the next step on the path. So fast forward through grad school. It's the spring of my last semester, and I am set to graduate, where now people are going, okay, now what are you going to do? What's your job? What's next? The questions you're all about to get over the holiday breaks, I'm sure, for our seniors in here. the questions of what's next. There was always this like, the train kept moving. And so I, shared with my contextual education supervisor as we had to find a placement in the city of Boston. I love working with young people. I love retreats. I love service trips. And they said, okay, great. Glad to hear that. And I was placed at Boston Medical Center on the spiritual care chaplaincy team. And to say I was underprepared, overwhelmed, and shocked is all an understatement here. I saw myself in college ministry, but I didn't even imagine what hospital ministry could be or what I could offer in that. I was 24 years old. I had just taken my first courses in very intense theology, and I was like, what do I have to say to pain and to suffering? What do I have to say to patients who have had so much more life experience than I have? What can I really do in this place? And some of the most terrifying moments of that were when you would get a floor. You get an assignment for the day, and you say, okay, you're going to the 4th floor of the ICU. Good luck. And I'd have to walk into a room and say, hi, I'm Kelly. I'm from the spiritual care department. How you feeling today? That is a terrifying moment. Talk about waiting. You have no idea what kind of response you were going to get. Some people were thrilled for the opportunity to say, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. This is where I find my own faith tradition to provide strength or hope or some kind of resource and sense and meaning in this. But then you also get the other side of that. Don't even come into my room. Don't even think that God has something to say to my pain. Don't even think that God can be in my suffering with me because God's not here, and so I don't want you here. And so to be 24 years old and not sure what you're walking into there and not really sure what even to say, that placement really challenged me deeply, and it challenged my sense of what ministry is and what waiting and suffering is and how God can be in that space. So one day I get a page that says, patient needs Bible. I'm like, okay, great, drive-through ministry, this is great. I can take Bible, deliver Bible, peace out, awesome. That I can do. Everything else terrified me, but that I could do. And so I walk on the floor, and I realize that this visit is going to be different. And I see 2 guards at the door, and I walk in to meet Mike. Mike is a middle-aged man. Mike was here at the hospital for an appointment from MCI, from the Massachusetts Correctional Institute. And I look at Mike, hi, I'm Kelly, I'm the spiritual care department. And I give him the Bible and try to get out of there as quickly as I can. And I'm stopped by the doctor, and the doctor walks in. And I try to hide in the walls. If I could, I would have. And the doctor delivers a terminal cancer diagnosis to Mike. And I have no idea what to do. Mike has no idea what to do. The guards come in, try to say something. And I think, okay, if I bolt this way and turn right, I can leave, and it's like I was never here. But something in me said, stay, wait, don't go. That's the easy way out here, but that's not what I was called to in the moment, even though I was overwhelmed with my sense of inadequacy and inability to respond to this situation in so many ways. Almost a question of like, why me? What can I offer? I don't know Mike's experience. I don't know his health. I don't know what led us together in this moment, and why is it me? Of all the ministers and all the chaplains, why is it me in this room? So the only thing I could muster in that moment was pulling up a chair. And so I pulled up a chair and I sat with Mike, and Mike cried. Mike just cried, and I fought that urge that we all have to say the right thing in those moments, and I just let that emotion and that news just settle into the room. And Mike looks up, and I look at him, and he hands me back the Bible and goes, give me something. And I go blank. The Bible in my hand, I am playing Bible roulette as fast as I can. I don't know where to go. I'm blanking on everything. I don't even know. I think I'm not even holding it right side up. And I remember in that week, I was in a class on the Psalms, and I remember my professor saying, in the Psalms holds every range of human emotion. And I was like, well, that's probably a good place to start. So I start in the Psalms, and I find one, I land on it, and I trust, you know what? First line looks good, last line looks good. Let's give this a try. And so this is the psalm that I read with Mike. Psalm 130. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my cries. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in God's word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning. And we read that again, and I did my best to say, good luck, may God be with you, and I walked out of that room, never to see Mike again, not to know where Mike is now, not to know the status of his health, not even sure why I was the one in that room. And for me, I think that waiting, as the ones who watch for morning, was a shared work of trust between Mike and I. Not knowing the answer, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to rush through that moment, but just to be in it together and hope that the God who put us there could hold us together in that space. And I think that shared work of trust in waiting is something that I need to continue to come back to, not to rush through, but really just to pull up the chair and sit and be in it, and to recognize I'm not alone in it. And it made me think again, who am I waiting with and who waits with me? How do I wait with them? And how did this moment prepare me to wait with others? How did this teach me to trust the God that is bigger than whatever words we can muster, whatever page we flipped into the scriptures, that we could reflect to one another the love and the hope of God? And so that leads me to now. My third example is right here, right now, December 4th of 2018. What do I wait for? I wait for that God of ever greater, ever wider, ever more loving response. I wait for that God that promises new life, that God that promises faithfulness and joy, and yet we all know too well a world that says otherwise. And this makes me think of Appa volunteers. This makes me think of what we do in a program that responds to poverty, as a service immersion program that's going out in March 2019, if any of you would like to join, to 37 different communities. Thank you. No, it really calls me to this place of waiting for a God of hope, believing in that hope, daring to hope. How risky that is when we know too well the marginalization, the oppression, the systemic injustice. We know too well the brokenness of our world. How dare I hope in that God of new life? And how dare I even offer that to someone who is sitting in pain and suffering? And so we come to this place of tension, maybe tension you have known in your own experience of service immersion, tension in your own life, of knowing injustice, knowing pain, knowing suffering in a very real way, but also hearing that voice of God that says, I am here, and I promise you life, and I promise you change, and that we stand in the middle of that. And a program like Appa to say, I'm here for a week to just stand in the middle of that. And it brings more questions and frustrations, and it brings this desire to do more and feeling like I can't even do enough. And so how we hold that in that space of waiting, I think is, to me, I see a God of hope, and where my faith really calls me to get out of bed and to sit and wait in that. So to wait for a God of justice and peace, but also a God who calls us individually for our own vocations. So a God who has called me to be a campus minister, which if you had asked me at 18 years old I would be a campus minister, I'd be like, oh, no way. Funny, no way am I going to be doing that. But here we are, this God of surprises, of new life, this unexpected plans to my planning that said waiting shouldn't be a part of the equation. And so this God who calls me to ministry, who I also know is a God that calls me to family life, a God who calls me to marriage. And that's not something I'm in yet. That's not something that's a part of my vocation. And so for right now, how do I wait? How do I wait to know that that's what God calls me to, but I'm just not there yet? That this is what God promises me, and this is what God will reveal, but I'm still here. And maybe there's something like that in your own life that you're like, I'm just not there yet. How do I wait? And it's not this passive thing. I wish it were. I'm not sitting on my couch waiting for the doorbell to ring and say, hi, Kelly, I'm your life partner. Nice to meet you. Like, I'm not. I wish. It would be so much easier if that were the case. But no, this waiting is an active thing, not a linear process, but this active, ever openness to what God might be inviting us to. And it's also, I think, with that, a sense of vocation, too, that my life isn't just waiting to start until I get married and have kids, that my life's already begun. What are you doing to live your vocation right here, right now? And so I think about the ability to walk around Jamaica Pond. I live in Jamaica Plain here in Boston, and to hold that space with gratitude. I think about walking on our beautiful campus and looking around at all of you and saying, what a blessing and gift to be able to be here and to serve and to do life with all of you. What a great thing to be in a choir, to join a spin class, to have cheese and wine with my friends and just be in that moment and know God is here with us. So rather than focusing on the waiting, seeing God amidst it right here, right now, knowing that God will still reveal so many more things than I can understand or even plan for. So what are our practices of waiting? I would say for us, how do we do that? How do you do that? One of mine is relying on my people who really support me and remind me when that trust and that hope and that waiting starts to spiral into despair. It's not going to happen. It's not for me. I'm not sure. I think I'm ready to give up. It's coming back from a really, really bad date, coming back to your apartment, and your roommate going, how was it? Really excited, and you just sink to the floor and say nothing. And your roommate goes, oh, that well, huh? Yeah, that sounds good. And it's the one that pours the cup of tea and says, we do hard things, and you can do hard things, and we're doing hard things together. That, to me, is the active, shared work of waiting, and knowing that God is in that for all of us, in ways we know right here and right now, and ways that we know are yet to be revealed. So to wrap up here, in conclusion, what to me is waiting? Waiting is paying attention, particularly to the points of dissatisfaction, discontent, the place that says, I'm not okay with this, and I think I might need to do something about it. It's that restlessness that stirs us to say, maybe there's something more. It's a shared work. We can't wait alone. Waiting is hard enough. I get in my own head, I get in my own thoughts. We got to have people around us that can wait with us, that can reflect back God's hope, can reflect back encouragement, can say, you can do hard things. And lastly, it's waiting on this God of ever greater, ever wider, ever more loving response, this God of hope that promises new life. And when we get in our own heads, when we get down, when we believe nothing else could be changed, it's that voice that said, I came that you might have life and have it in abundance. And it's the ability to hear that ever small voice. And so as we get ready for Christmas, we enter more deeply into this time of waiting. I think about wanting to rush through it, get to Christmas, the things I have to do on my to-do list, the things we need to happen to get there. And I think, no, can I stop? Can I pause and recognize this waiting as a gift? Can this be the very gift that God's inviting me into? And if waiting for the God who comes into my life, to our lives, to our pains, to our sufferings, to our hopes and dreams, if that's the God that comes with us as Emmanuel, God with us, I think that's something that I'm willing to wait for. So thank you. Thanks,